is the 77 WABC minicast.
When I'm inducted officially into the New York Broadcasting Hall of Fame in October at that beautiful luncheon at the Rainbow Room, guess who's going in with me? Rosanna Scotto. So Scotto had the governor on yesterday, and anybody with a half a brain knows that these data centers are not only important, but they provide, you ready for this word? Jobs. Bruce Blakeman is the current Nassau County executive. He won it for the second consecutive time, getting a lot of votes from Democrats and independents. He's running for governor. He's my brother. Here he is, the great Bruce Blakeman. Brucey, good morning, pal. How are you?
Good morning, Sid. We're doing great.
I know you guys are, and I know because I've got a spy in your office every day. He happens to be my son. We'll get to that later. But let me get to these data centers. Here is another example of Kathy Hochul costing New York jobs. Or am I wrong?
This is an act of economic cowardice and malpractice on the part of Governor Hochul. Said there is a way to get this done where it can be a win-win-win. You sit down with the data center developers and local governments and other community people of interest, utility companies, and you figure out how to make it work. If there's a water problem, you make sure that there's a water recirculation element to the project so that the water keeps recirculating. If there's a utility problem, you make the data center provide its own power generation, and on top of that, you let them sell for a minimal cost the excess energy to the grid to bring down people's utility costs. And you provide tax abatements to people who live around the data centers so their taxes are reduced. So you cut their taxes, you cut their utility costs, and you put in data centers that create jobs that will be employing carpenters, electricians, plumbers, steam fitters to do the work to build these places, and you get along with the future of an industry that is now the fastest growing industry in America. But Kathy Hochul, she has continuously made blunders and huge mistakes that now have us ranked 50 out of 50 states at the very bottom of economic outlook and economic development. And that's why people are leaving the state. They're looking for jobs in other places. And that's why businesses don't want to locate here. When I become governor, we're going to sit down with all the stakeholders and figure this thing out and get it done so it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Well, what is she complaining about? You have to, because this is a little, look, this is some pretty good inside baseball stuff. A lot of my listeners I stole from Boomer Esiason. Right, so they're getting ready to watch the Yankees and the Dodgers later on tonight. You just explained it. It sounds like it's a great opportunity for people in any one of these states to build these data centers. What is she bitching about? What's her problem?
Well, there are legitimate concerns. The number one concern is energy generation because these data centers require a lot of energy.
Okay.
So the developers have said, we will produce on-site the power generation, not only for our data center, but we'll provide extra for the surrounding community, or we will rebuild your existing power plants to increase the capacity. They're willing to invest money in that. The data centers require a tremendous amount of water. There's new technology now with recirculation systems. So you can make it mandatory for the recirculation of water at the data centers. So there are solutions to the problems, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. And it's coming from the left. It's coming from China, who doesn't want us to beat them in this AI race. AI is the fastest growing industry in the world. For New York to completely shut themselves out of it is another reason why we are in a death spiral here in New York, the most overtaxed state. utility costs 70% higher than the national average, and unsafe communities because Kathy Hochul's lack of leadership. And now she's partnered with Zoran Mandami, who is completely clueless when it comes to economic development. He's a communist.
Yep.
So the two of them together are trying to destroy our state. I'm not going to let that happen. I will be the governor on January 1st, and we will find solutions to these problems. We will make AI data centers work for the communities that they go into, and those communities will want them, provided that there are enough incentives to make sure that the surrounding communities are happy with the data centers, which I believe will happen because it's happening in every other state.
It is, and you mentioned the people leaving, and they're all leaving. I know, John Catsimatidis, thank God, is still here. We love John, and others, Bill Ackman is still here, and Griffin still has some stuff here, But people are leaving. I think I saw a number like $11 billion in tax money basically out the door. Years and years ago, you remember, Bruce, before you ran for governor, she actually told us to leave. She said, hey, Lee Zeldin, President Trump, Sid Rosenberg, hop on a plane. See ya. I was down in Fort Lauderdale a couple of months ago, and that was when she was begging New Yorkers to come back. And I joked around. I made a tweet. I'm on the beach in Fort Lauderdale trying to convince New Yorkers to come back to a state where they want to overtax you with a mayor who hates Americans and Jews. Come on home. And I think it got like 3 million retweets. But the truth is, she has invited New Yorkers to leave for years.
This is someone who is completely out of touch, doesn't understand that when high net worth individuals leave, they take their tax revenue with them. So who has to fill that gap? The burden falls on middle class taxpayers. And when those rich people leave, who does it hurt? It hurts the waiter, the waitress, the electrician, the plumber, the carpenter, the dry cleaner, the local dry cleaner, the local pharmacy. It has a ripple effect in a deleterious way on the economy. And that's why New York is last in economic outlook. And one of the things she said on Rosanna's show yesterday, and it just shows her antipathy for people around this state. She said people upstate don't have the sophistication to deal with the people in the AI.
I heard her say that. And that's rough.
Listen to me. I have traveled to every nook and cranny, every corner of this state. And I can tell you that I have found really, really bright, sophisticated, articulate people located throughout the state, whether they're farmers, whether they're working in blue-collar jobs. They have what Kathy Hochul doesn't have, Sid, common sense.
Yes, but here's where I'm going to agree with her, but it's her fault. Because I was just at my mom's house in White Lake / Canyonga Lake, New York, 2 weekends ago, Bruce. She's exactly 5 miles from Monticello. Those people barely have teeth. I'm being serious, let alone income or smarts, because the last couple of governors, Andrew Cuomo, Kathy Hochul, who promised to help the people in Monticello, in Rochester, in Binghamton, in Syracuse, in Utica, promised to help them, have left them behind. And these people are drug-addled. They don't have jobs. And quite frankly, they're not sophisticated. But that's because the leadership has basically left them to die. Ask Todd Hood. He'll tell you firsthand.
Well, Sid, there are pockets of abject poverty throughout the state of New York created by Kathy Hochul, especially on the southern tier of our state where she won't let extraction of natural gas. But let me tell you something. I've talked to a lot of people in small towns upstate. I talked to a lot of farmers. And let me tell you something. They're sharp, and I wouldn't take them for granted. It's like what Kathy Hochul said that quite frankly I thought was racist when she said that black kids in the Bronx don't know what a computer is.
She said that?
Yes, she did.
Oh, my God.
She has an antipathy towards people. She's an elitist.
Oh, my God.
And the fact that she would say something like that, first of all, I'm of the generation where I'm not the most technologically savvy.
Me either.
Okay, I can tell you right now that the vast majority of black kids in the Bronx or any other place are better on a computer than I am.
Me too. Well, that is absolutely a racist remark. Absolutely.
Well, it's like what she said about people upstate, lumping them all together. And she has this superiority complex that she knows better than anybody else what's best for our families. She wants to have government parent our children. This nonsense of gestating parent and non-gestating parent, instead of calling them moms and dads or mothers and fathers.
Terrible.
This is all part of her superiority complex, where she thinks she should be able to control our lives, and she's doing a miserable job.
She really is.
Overtaxed.
Yeah.
70% higher utility rates. How do you explain that?